Welcome to this video tutorial. This one is a top 20 out of 20 student answer from 2018, paper 1, methods in context. I am always excited to share with you top band student answers, as if you can see what an outstanding answer is, you are more likely to be able to replicate it. So by watching this video, you will be able to see what being in context actually is. Massive thank you for watching. If you gained something from this video, please click like. If you want to see more, please subscribe, and any questions, please stick them in the comments below. You know me, I answer absolutely everything. So methods in context is my favourite to teach and also to mark. So just a quick reminder about what it actually is. It's worth 20 marks. You spend 30 minutes on this answer. The main instruction is to use the item, to give strengths and weaknesses of the method, and the main focus is to apply to the context in education. Now, if you look at the examiner report, I've just highlighted it here, the majority of students were unable to apply a characteristic of pupil exclusions to the method of participant observation to reach the requirements of the top band, with the most effective responses only offering one or more applications. So, important to consider, you need to consider the characteristics of the group that you are being studying. You need to have AO1 of the method and the characteristics of the research. Make sure you are applying to school and the context in the question, and evaluate strengths and weaknesses, faults and pitfalls of studying the group in question. So here is the question. So most students were able to effectively apply from the item. For example, they picked out things like small groups and also establishing a good relationship. However, the most effective were able to develop the appropriate role to something like a classroom assistant to gain more validity. A handy tip for you is the item is there to give you prompts and ideas, so make sure that you use it. So let's have a look at the student answer and see where she picked up the marks. So here is the answer by Kate. Now, as always, I always instruct my students to give a brief introduction. One, it just gets you writing. And in that introduction for a method in context, I just basically say to them, you know what, just describe the method, get some early level 2, level 3s out of the way, because like I said, it gets you writing, and then you can start to organise your thoughts about what you're going to be writing about. And she does this pretty well here. She starts off by explaining what participant observation is. She refers to both participants and non-participants. And then it says it can be used to uncover behaviours that are often difficult to study through other methods. So that only gets level 2. There's no elaboration on there, but at least she's got writing and it's focused on what the question set is. What you'll notice about Kate's answer and every paragraph is that she'll always start off with something about the method, which is only level 3, and she'll explain it, and then what she then does is she develops it into an educational context, and finally in some paragraphs she does actually go into the context of pupil exclusions and participant observation. So she follows a nice structure. Her overall structure is that she addresses practical issues, then she addresses ethical issues, and then she addresses theoretical issues. So that means she gets a good breadth of what the method is, but every time she is forcing herself to apply it to the school context, but to also the context which is in the questions. So let's have a look at some of these paragraphs in a little bit more detail. So our first paragraph starts with a practical limitation. She uses this signpost quite well. And then what she does, she explains what that practical limitation is, getting into the group in order to observe them. Now that is quite generic. It could apply to any context. So what she then does is that she starts to apply it to the education context, introducing terms such as the gatekeeper. She gives the clarification that it would be the head teacher, and she gives a little bit of context there about students being vulnerable, being under 16, needing a CRB check, which is all time consuming, so she's linking that to the practical issue. And then she then starts to apply it to pupil exclusions. She references the item, which is an excellent idea, and then she explains why the head teacher might refuse access because of the context which is given in the question, which is pupil exclusions being a sensitive topic, which then might harm the reputation of the school. Now that stays at a level 4 because at this point there there is no indication to participant observation. This could be just about research in general, so that stays at a level 4, but still quite a strong opening paragraph, which then gets into context quite quickly. The second paragraph continues with the practical limitations of it, but this time she takes it from a different angle, because she is suggesting that with it being participant observation, and by nature of an observation, it does tend to be time consuming because of the first-hand observation of the group. And this becomes a limitation because it impacts the amount of data that you can collect from an observation, which will then impact whether it's representative of that group in general. She then clarifies it by applying it to the context in the question. She does repeat herself a little bit here, but she does make a slightly different point, because she's this time, instead of the gatekeeper refusing because of the reputation of the school, the gatekeeper might refuse because it is being time consuming and it could disrupt the learning of pupils, which then makes it difficult to gain access to the target population. Here's the characteristic, which is pupil exclusions. So she does have that application to the question there, but again, it is very vague, especially with this level 4, to participant observation. At that point, that is the reason why it stays at level 4 and not goes to level 5. But she does do it. We're building up to it. So we'll see that in the next few paragraphs. Now the student turns her attention to the ethical issues, staying at level 3 because she just basically describes what the ethical issues might be, because it could be distressing or harmful, which could apply to any context. But then again, she gets quickly into the context of the school, saying about students being a vulnerable group because of their age, and they are more prone to distress and harm. She clarifies where this distress and harm might come from with the study of students, because she applies it to the context here, which is that pupils are more likely to suffer negative consequences because of research. She links it to the item with students that might have special educational needs, and poorer pupils are more likely to be excluded. So any research that is done on those groups, it's going to have a bit more of a long-term effect on them. And what she does is that she explains this quite well, because she gets 2 very quick level 5s in successions. So let's just break down why they are level 5s. Kate starts by identifying a characteristic of an excluded student, which is special educational needs or poorer students. And then she starts to link it to an issue of participant observation, which could be harm or distress, and a long-term effect on that, which could be lowered self-esteem. She does then to continue with this point by saying that it becomes an ethical issue when gaining the informed consent, because these groups, here's the characteristic, poorer or any students with special educational needs, will not be able to fully understand and comprehend the ideas in the same way as adults. They might not understand the concept of the study, so they can't consent to participate in it, which may become a further issue when studying a group of pupils such as students with special educational needs, because they are less likely to give informed consent to being observed in that context. This next paragraph, she turns her attention to the theoretical issues. You can see the structure is that she starts with the method, she develops it, she does the method again, she gets into school, and then she develops it once more. So if we start off, the theoretical strength that she identifies is getting close to them, increasing the validity of the research. So that would be just a level 3. There's no indication of school at this point. It could apply to any group. But then she clearly signposts that she's going to go into the educational context. It gives deeper insight to why pupils get excluded, as opposed to using the official statistics, which may be inaccurate portrayal of pupil exclusions. So she gets level 5 for that. She then goes into another point, getting a rapport to be built between the participants and the observer, with the data being gained as the participants are more comfortable in sharing their experiences, increasing the validity. To me, that's just that level 3, and she gets that level 3 awarded there. But she does identify a little bit more of a development of this, because there is that rapport between participants and the observer, but in the context of a school, pupils are more likely to see the researcher or the observer as a teacher in disguise. She clarifies it with the power status difference between adults and children, which means they are less likely to be truthful in the behaviour or of what they're talking about, which is lowering the validity of the study. No real application to pupil exclusions here, so that is quite limited, but it is in school context. But then she does start to give some characteristics of the pupil exclusions. Characteristics such as being anti-school or even being suspicious of authority figures. So now at this point she is developing it to the pupil exclusion part, which means that if the people that you're observing are anti-school, they are more likely to give false behaviours because of the suspicions that they have of observers being teachers in disguise. And then she gets this really strong level 5 point here, or even because the students that is being studied are truants. They're not even there to be observed, which does get you a level 5. And she just brings it back by saying this is reducing the validity because you're not measuring what you want to measure, which is pupil exclusions, and you can't do it because they're not there. Her final paragraph is continuing with theoretical issues. She picks up from the item with the small groups. That was really common. A lot of students did refer to that as mentioned on the examiner report, and that it tends to be lacking representativeness of the research and cannot be generalized. That is just still level 3 because it could apply to any group, but what she does do is that applies a characteristic of the groups that is being studied, which is that especially in a school peer pressure could occur, and this means that it will lower the validity because of peer pressure. But as you can see here, we do have a brief characteristic, which is peer pressure and bullying, but it's not really clarified and it's not really effective in the application to the pupil exclusions. So there is some application, but this is not as strong as some of her previous paragraph. Her final paragraph is her conclusion. So she just summarises and ties her answer together. So she mentions that it is problematic because of the practical, ethical, theoretical issues. She's clearly wrote about all these three issues, such as gaining access to the group and gaining informed consent, but she then does the however. It is useful in uncovering behaviour and facts that are difficult to establish through other methods such as experiments, because they allow the researcher to get close to the group and understand the true behaviour. So just to summarise, Kate got 1 level 2, 7 level 3s, 6 level 4s and 4 level 5s. Good method throughout. She addressed the practical, ethical and theoretical issues, but it was these 6 level 4s that meant that she got at least 16 marks just off those applications that she had there, and because then she had 4 level 5s, gaining from 16 a point for each, that would have took her up to 20 out of 20. Just to summarise, this is just a way that I found that will help you structure your answers, and as you can see, Kate roughly followed that. So she started off with practical, ethical, theoretical, but just making sure that you are applying to the school context and obviously the context in the question, just to help you out. As always, massive thank you for watching. If you've liked this video, please click the like button, please subscribe. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments below. Check out any of the other videos in terms of methods in context. I do quite a few of those, how to transform paragraphs and how to check that you're in context and what the different levels are. I've got videos on all of those. I've put them in the description below, so please check them out and have a great day. Thank you for watching.